Good evening. I would like to welcome you to tonight's Meet the Board of Education candidates. My name is Brian Walmsley, Superintendent for Richmond Community Schools. If you would please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is my hope that after tonight's forum and the information that's provided for the community members on our website, that voters will have an informed decision when they go to the polls on November 3rd. On August 20th, I emailed a letter to the 7 candidates running for the Board of Education and invited them to tonight's Meet the Board of Education candidates. Running for the Board of Education for a 2-year term is Mrs. Sutton and Mrs. Tertow. Running for the Board of Education for a 6-year term is Mrs. Fortuna, Mrs. Michon, Mrs. Shoeboy, Mrs. Teltow, and Mrs. Zuby. Each candidate was asked to provide a photograph and informational background sheet. The district has posted the information received from each candidate as well as a link to their Facebook page on the district website. A copy of the letter that I sent to each candidate is also available on the website. As you see, candidates are socially distanced on stage. Prior to tonight's events, candidates drew numbers to determine who goes first in the interview questions. Beginning with the candidate that drew number 1, which is Mrs. Fortuna. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves, explain why they're running for the Board of Education. Following introductory statements by each candidate tonight, the moderator will ask the candidates questions submitted in advance by community members. Candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to the moderator's questions. Candidates will have an opportunity to respond to the statements made by other candidates. Candidates were asked to RSVP for tonight's event. As you can see, some candidates are here and some are not. Candidates that are not here had sent me communication explaining why they would not be here. Mrs. Shoeboy, Ms. Michon, Mrs. Sutton, and Mrs. Zuby all responded that they were not going to participate in tonight's events. Mrs. Tertow responded that she would participate, but a recent family personal issue has caused her to cancel for tonight. Both Mrs. Fortuna and Mrs. Teltow have responded that they would be here. Tonight's moderator is Dr. Alesia Flye, Chief Academic Officer for the Macomb Intermediate School District. Dr. Flye is a student-focused and advocate for public education in all arenas, particularly the political arena. Her dedication to providing professional development, support, and resources for the classroom teacher is unparalleled. Her positive attitude is always seeing the glass half full. Since I have known her, she has demonstrated a can-do spirit that inspires educators and administrators across not only this county, but across the Tri-County area. Dr. Flye is respected for her knowledge, professionalism, and support for educators. Prior to coming to the MISD, Dr. Flye held the position as Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction for West Bloomfield. She's also worked in the Ann Arbor Public Schools, Rochester, and Utica Community School District. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Flye to the podium and to Richmond Community Schools.
Well, thank you, Mr. Walmsley. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. In my role as Chief Academic Officer for Macomb County, I have the pleasure of working with all 21 of our local school districts, and it is just that, an absolute pleasure when I get the opportunity to interact and be in our local school communities. As Mr. Walmsley also mentioned, I'm an educator. I have over 30 years of experience as an educator and have proudly served as a teacher as well as a principal and various other administrative roles as well, both in Michigan and in other areas of the country. Again, I would like to start by thanking all of the participants this evening for your interest in serving and working with families of Richmond community schools, especially during these challenging times. One of my favorite sayings as I think about Board of Education members in your role in providing and supporting leadership, the school board is the primary advocate for children in public schools in its community. So again, I applaud each of you for your interest in serving the students and family of Richmond Community Schools. As Mr. Walmsley said, the protocol that we'll be following this evening, I will be asking some questions that have been submitted by the Richmond community, but I will also be asking some questions that are traditionally asked in regional Board of Education candidate forums. I've had the opportunity to do this on other occasions. For each of the questions, except opening remarks and closing remarks, each candidate will have approximately 1 minute to respond to each question. Each of you will be given the opportunity for opening remarks of about 3 minutes, and you'll have an opportunity at the end of the round of questions to have about 2 minutes for closing remarks. And so we are going to, and I believe, Mr. Walmsley, that we did have someone draw for opening comments. Okay, so we'll begin with Mrs. Fortuna and her opening remarks.
Is this, okay, it's on. Hello, my name is Sandra Fortuna, and I'm running for one of the 3 6-year terms to be on the school board. I've been married for 22 years. I moved to the district 17 years ago. My husband and I have 2 children. Our oldest son graduated from Richmond Community Schools in 2012, and our daughter graduated from Richmond Community Schools in 2018. I have volunteered with many things in the community and in the school district, including the choir boosters, the theater boosters, and RGFA. I initially got interested in the board and what the Board of Education does here when my daughter sat on the board as a student representative. She did that for 3 years, and I came to probably about 95% of those meetings and learned quite a bit. After she was graduated and a seat became available in January, I interviewed for that seat and was appointed by the board at that time. Now that both my children are graduated, I have the time to dedicate to the board. It takes a lot of time, and I have the time to dedicate. I want to give back to my community that's given so much to me and my children. I want to work towards keeping this district a great place for families and students. I want to take part in making it in its growth, and I just feel like when the district is thriving and doing well, then so is the community. And that's why I'm running to be on the board.
Thank you. And next we will have opening remarks from our next candidate, and we have Margaret Teltow. If I pronounced that correctly.
Yep, you did. Thank you. First, before I get started introducing myself, I just want to make a note to those out in the viewing audience that I am an employee of the Macomb Intermediate School District, as is Dr. Flye. But prior to this evening, she and I have never laid eyes on each other. We don't know each other. We just met this evening. So, I'm Margaret Teltow, and I am running for one of the 3 6-year spots on the Board of Education. I have served on this board for a total of 18 years, 8 years in the 90s, and I have been on the board since 2010. I have lived in Richmond almost my whole entire life. I am a Richmond High School graduate, class of 1981, best class to graduate from Richmond High School. My husband and I have been married for 30 years. While we have no children, my husband has 2 children. My stepson graduated from Richmond. My 2 grandchildren are Richmond grads. I have had nephews graduate, great nieces. I have nieces and a nephew that are presently attending Richmond schools. So I am very invested in what happens in our school district and our community. I am a huge supporter of public education. I believe it is paramount to our future, for the future of not only our community, but this country. And I believe that it is important to be able to have a voice at the table to do things for our students to prepare them for the world. I serve on the Richmond Education Foundation Board. I'm a founding board member, and being part of that has been great. We provide grants to teachers. We provide scholarships for seniors and scholarships for students to go to summer camps. I would like to continue the great work that we're doing here at Richmond Schools because it is an outstanding place to educate your children. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidates, thank you for those opening remarks. And so for the next round of questions, you will have approximately 1 minute to answer each of these questions. And we're back to Mrs. Fortuna. And the first question in this round of questions is, what is the role of a school board member and what motivated you to seek this role?
The role of the school board member is to keep the students in mind when making decisions. And we have a lot of tough decisions we have to make. We have to balance a budget. We have to sometimes make those hard decisions and try to have as least impact as possible on students and student programs in any kind of negative way. We have to have time to go over a lot of different documentation, to think about it, to research it, and come up with an informed, decision as to what's best for the district.
Thank you. Mrs. Teltow, the same question. What is the role of a school board member and what motivated you to seek this role?
The role of a school board member, first and foremost, is budget. Making sure we are fiscally sound, that we are spending taxpayer dollars correctly. We are the voice for the students. We are the group that takes direction from the superintendent and administrators for curriculum ideas that need to happen in our district. And what motivated me, like I said, this is my community. I've lived here forever, and I believe that public education is so important, and the best way to do that and to keep good public education happening in this community is to be a part of the board.
Thank you. The next question, Mrs. Fortuna, can you please share with us your thoughts about the way legislation is impacting schools? And you can choose from any piece of legislation that may come to mind, or speak broadly regarding legislation and impacting schools.
Legislation impacts schools in all kinds of ways. We have to follow laws and regulations, regarding how monies are spent, regarding what program or what curriculum we have to do. It's heavily involved in what we have to do and the decisions that we have to make.
And the same question for you, Mrs. Teltow. Just share your thoughts about the way that recent legislation impacts schools.
And I only have how long? Legislation is not pro-public education, as far as I'm concerned. The funding that happens in the state is horrible. Depending on where you live, some districts get more money than other. I don't think it's allocated fairly. I have said for years, our schools are looked upon by how well they do, and if everyone's not getting the same amount of money, I don't know how you can judge my school district with someone else. If and when it ever happens that the legislators decide to fund districts proportionately the same, then you can start talking about what's a better school district and what isn't. And I think with what happens in Michigan, I think we have done a tremendous job here in Richmond for the fact that we get the lowest foundation money from the state.
Mrs. Fortuna, if you had the opportunity to speak with State Board of Education members or the governor, what suggestions would you have to improve schools in Michigan?
First and foremost, more funding. I also would like to discuss them funding more mental health professionals to be available for our students. I would like them to fund more programs for our students. So basically, it all boils down to funding. We need a lot more funding to do to do some of these things. In Richmond, we have done some real great things with what we're given, but we always need more.
Thank you. And the same question, Mrs. Teltow, if you had the opportunity to speak with State Board of Education members and the governor, what suggestions, would you make to improve Michigan schools?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about testing. It seems that testing doesn't ever stay the same. We get one kind of testing happening and then we change in the middle of the road for something else. And I think continuity in testing would be wonderful. I think, it's a better way to judge school districts. And, the state board's powers are really limited, but I think that pushing them to talk to legislators about more adequate funding and being more positive about education and teachers and the role that they play with our students. And I agree with Mrs. Furtaw that with the funding for mental health and social workers, that kind of stuff gets put by the wayside for districts like us who don't have as much money as someone else. So I think looking at more of what we can do for the whole student, that's what I'd like to talk about.
Thank you. And Mrs. Fortuna, as part of this school year, the 2021 reopening and the challenges, schools have had to prepare many reports in a short time span. Such as the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan, the extended COVID-19 learning plans. What impact do you think this is having on local school boards' ability to lead and manage?
This has been a huge issue since, March, obviously. I know that the board has had a lot of discussion in regards to the return to learning and things like that. Here at Richmond, that's something that we really should be proud of. We have a great return to learning plan, and we've had, I think, over 40 people work on it, including teachers and administrators, and we did a really great job collectively as a group here for our return to learning plan.
Thank you. And Mrs. Teltow, again, the same question. As part of the 2021 reopening, schools have had to prepare many reports. And as I've mentioned previously, what impact do you think this is having on local school boards' ability to lead and manage?
I think it's scary, I think is one of the biggest things, because we are making decisions for the health and welfare of all of our staff. And that's very scary. But I believe when you are in a district where you have great leadership at the top, and our administrators and our teachers, and I agree with Mrs. Fortuna, our plan is far and away better than anybody in the county. And I think the work that was put in by all the staff to do it, and I participated in some of those meetings with putting the plan together. I think that helped as a board member, knowing that everybody was involved and everybody had input, and we were all on the same wavelength, knowing this was the best we could do for Richmond and its students.
Thank you. Even as we navigate these challenging times, the ultimate goal is still to make sure our students are thriving in terms of their achievement as well as their social and emotional health. As you think, Mrs. Fortuna, as you think about these things, what do you think enhances student achievement?
During this current time or just in general?
Just in general, or you can speak specifically about the current times as well, because we know right now we are living in some challenging times. So maybe addressing both.
Okay. So can you repeat the question then?
Yes. What do you think enhances student achievement?
Okay.
It may be pre-COVID and during the COVID challenging times that we're living in right now.
Sure. I think, community involvement. Our community is a very small community, so it's very involved in a lot of the things that go on here in regards to athletics and school and things like that. I think what's important is to have a lot of teachers, parents involved, the board involved in a lot of the decision making so that everybody's on the same page and knows what's expected of you as a student and as just a community member. And just being, open about things that are happening, why they're happening, and that helps everybody, I think, that just helps everybody.
Thank you. And Mrs. Teltow, again, as you think about pre-COVID structures and the current challenges that we're facing now, what do you think enhances student achievement?
Innovation, forward thinking, thinking outside the box, especially right now during the COVID. We purchased cameras in our classroom for remote learning for our students, so our teachers are educating our own students. So our kids that are remote, they are at home, but they are inside the classroom. That enhances the whole experience for our students in the classroom and at home. And I just think that we do such a good job here with that if you don't have innovative, forward-thinking leaders and educators, there's not a lot of enhancement happens.
Mrs. Teltow, I'm sorry, Mrs. Fortuna, getting out of order here a little bit. What changes would you make in Richmond community schools, or even at the county level, to improve instruction? So again, what changes would you make in Richmond community schools, or even at the county level, to improve instruction?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, one of the changes that I would be for is making mental health professionals more accessible for students. Right now, 40% of students with mental health issues are graduate from high school, comparatively to the 76% that graduate otherwise. So that's one thing that I feel passionate about. I also am passionate about providing resources for students, looking forward to paths after high school, equal resources, including colleges, trades, and the armed forces, so that they can make informed decisions.
Thank you. And the same question, Mrs. Teltow. Again, what changes would you make in Richmond community schools, or even at the county level, to improve instruction?
Well, I think we've made some changes leading up to current times. So looking at more of the whole student, similar to what Mrs. Fortuna's talking, we've added some CTE programs in the last few years, so to look more towards that. Not every child goes to college, some are going into the trade, and I think we've done a good job of trying to meet that whole student, meet every student. So maybe just, if change is the right word, just keep in that direction of doing that. And at the county level, I think that we do a very good job at the county for what the ISD provides for us with respect to training for our teachers and administrators. So maybe just a bit of the county reaching out, what more do districts need? What else can the ISD do for our districts, I guess?
Thank you. As we think about special education students, who account for about 13% of our state population in terms of students, what is your assessment about how the needs of special education students are being addressed? So, Mrs. Fortuna, what's your assessment about how you think the needs of special education students are being addressed.
Well, special ed students are assigned individuals to help them through the day and whatnot. And if you're asking me, I guess, I think that that's a great thing to do. And I think we have to continue to do that. I think that we need to talk to our educators to continue to agree on or to come up with better ways to enhance the learning for them.
Thank you. And the same question, Mrs. Teltow, what is your assessment of how the needs of special education students are being addressed?
Are you talking in Richmond or in general?
Yeah, and you can speak to either or both.
Okay. I think in Richmond, I think our special education department does an outstanding job with our students on program things for our kids, our cognitively impaired students. I would like to see, I work at the ISD, I work at Neil Reed, so I work with special education students. I just think our kids are emotionally impaired at Neil Reed. We need to have more things for them to get out into the world, that just because they're special needs doesn't mean their education stops when they're 26 or they're 18. So to try to do a better job of getting them ready to be out in the world. And I think that's not just Richmond, but I think it's all over the country. I don't think there's a lot of support for special education students at the federal level, as much as I think it should be.
Thank you. And Mrs. Fortuna, what are the qualities of a good school leader? Can you talk about those qualities and give an example or include examples?
Sure. A good school leader would have good communication skills, be as transparent as possible, and very informative. Ask questions, ask questions, get information from the people that they work with, and assess themselves on a regular basis. Someone who is informed and does research in regards to information. Someone who is level-headed are all signs of someone who brings people together rather than divide them would be a good leader to me.
Thank you. And Mrs. Teltow, the same question. Again, what are some qualities of a good leader? And please include some examples.
Honesty, integrity, got to be an innovator. You've got to think outside the box. You have to be able to work with all different kinds of people. If you're talking a leader, a school leader, Lord knows there are, parents are unhappy, teachers are unhappy. There's a lot of days where nobody likes you or what's going on in your school district, and you have to be able to rise above that and do what's in the best interest of the school district. I just think surround yourself with good people and just always be looking for better ways to make the district better, and just reach out, get to know people in the community, know legislative stuff, just be able to make connections so that helps your school district improve by the people that you know.
Thank you. Mrs. Fortuna, please list or share with us some issues that loom in Richmond Community Schools' immediate future.
Okay, always budgeting is always an issue, I think, for every school district. Not to say that I'm not proud that what we've done with our budget, but that's always a concern of the board, always a topic of discussion. I think that's probably the biggest issue, I think, that the school district faces is balancing a budget as best they can without impacting students and programs.
Thank you. Again, Mrs. Teltow, the same question. What are some of the issues that loom in Richmond Community Schools' immediate future?
Surviving the COVID, making sure that we have a successful venture this year. You know, it's a daily, weekly thing of making sure that what we're doing is right and that we can get through this with everyone healthy and educating our students to the best of our ability in a crazy time. I think first and foremost, that's the biggest thing that's happening in Richmond, and I agree with Mrs. Fortuna with respect to budget. It's always an issue for us because of the size of our district and the amount of funding that we get and the worries of that we're maintaining the programs we have, that we're able to keep teachers whole, that as opposed to cutting teacher time in half or partially, or having to lay people off. I think those are two really big things that happen here.
Thank you. Mrs. Fortuna, with the shortage of staff members in Richmond as well as throughout the state, what would you do to address teacher turnover in the district?
I mean, I believe that the teachers here in our district are one of our biggest assets. We currently have, I think, 83 teachers, and about 41% of them have been with the district for over 15 years. I mean, I always want to work towards making that number better. And I think that goes with also balancing a budget and funding issues. But I mean, they certainly are top priority for me, as well as I think I can probably speak for the rest of the board. But for myself, for sure, it's definitely something that we are always looking at.
And Mrs. Teltow, again, this is the same question. With the shortage of staff members in Richmond as well as throughout the state, what would you do to address teacher turnover in the district?
Well, we don't have a shortage of teachers in Richmond. We have plenty. We have teachers. With respect to losing teachers, I think the biggest thing in Richmond is the pay. Teachers that leave us a lot of times leave because they can go to a bigger district and make more money. That's just the reality of it. And we can lose good teachers because of it, but then we turn around and we hire really good teachers in place of them. So if we could find a way to pay our teachers what they deserve to be paid, we'd probably have people that would stay with us 50 years. But we don't have a shortage. We might have a couple of teachers that we're looking to hire right now, but that's because we have such an influx of students this year. So we have a couple of spots that we need to fill. But I think overall, I think we do okay with respect to the teachers that we have.
Thank you. Mrs. Fortuna, what changes would you like to see in the district and why?
Okay, I mean, I've already spoken to this, but, the changes that I would like to see are more mental health professionals available for students, resources for students to look for paths after high school, including colleges, trades, and armed forces. I also would like to optimize student programs. I think we're always wanting to do that as much as we can in arts and both academics. Like currently we don't have a debate team or a Model UN. So I mean, those are some things that I would like to add to, I guess, things that we offer here in Richmond.
Thank you. And Mrs. Teltow, again, the same question. What changes would you like to see in the district and why?
Well, that word changes always makes me a little crazy because I look at our district that is just thriving in the last 10 years where we've gone from the district that 10 years ago People were leaving us in droves. They were going down the road to the neighboring school. Funding was terrible, and we have worked so very hard to get ourselves into the spot that we're in. So I don't change. I'm not sure how much needs to be changed on a district that is doing so well. But if we wanted to talk change, I guess a little bit I'd like to see where we can get people to be more positive about the teaching profession in the community, that how well our teachers do for the pay that they get, the situation that they're in. I just think a little more positivity. Social media is crazy. People like to get out on social media and say things that maybe aren't necessarily accurate about the district. I don't know how you change that. That's human nature. But for the most part, I think we're doing really, really well right now.
Thank you. Mrs. Fortuna, what would you do to encourage a cohesive professional relationship among the administrative team?
I would encourage that they speak up when in regards to any issues that they may have. I would encourage open communication between them and the district, the board. I believe that with open communication and that, you know, we can solve a lot of issues in regards to, not that I think that we necessarily have them, but, you know, before an issue arises, then, you know, as long as people have open communication.
Thank you. And Mrs. Teltow, again, the same question. What would you do to encourage a cohesive professional relationship among the administrative team?
Well, I guess that's kind of a tricky question because as a board member, I'm not responsible for the administrative team, but I think we have a very good team, and the cohesiveness, I think, would be up to them and the superintendent to work together because they're the ones that are running the school district. I agree, I would encourage open communication, but I think we have that. So I'm not really sure. I think that's a tricky question. I would just say that if everyone comes in and does their job like we expect them to do and that they do, I think that's as cohesive as they're going to be.
Thank you. And Mrs. Fortuna, considering Richmond has students traveling from other districts for programs such as for theater programs, as an example, how would you make these programs more of a priority in the Richmond community?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what kind of programs did you say?
This is theater,
Okay,
as an example.
okay. So how would I make it more?
More of a priority is the question in the Richmond community.
Okay. I mean, I think that the arts here, as far as the board is concerned, since I can remember, that's been a priority. So, I mean, they always have supported the arts, but I mean, currently, you know, we have a theater program. When we're speaking specifically to that, we do have a theater program for everybody, you know, to participate in. So, I mean, I think that it would be great if they had some kind of booster group, like other programs do, like the band or the choir, to help support those things. A lot of those things are parent-driven. So, I mean, I think those things would help improve those kinds of programs.
Thank you. And again, sorry I can't expound. This is, you know, several of these are questions from the community. And so the same question, Mrs. Teltow, considering Richmond has students traveling from other districts for programs such as theater, how would you make these programs more of a priority in the Richmond community?
Well, since you asked theater specific, I think we absolutely made theater a priority. I'm not sure this is our third year, but we had a theater program at our auditorium in town. It was like a summer program, and that was closing down. And through Mr. Walmsley's leadership, we created a K-12 theater program for all of those students that were part of that at the Aud, and they did come from other schools to participate in that. So I think we did make that a priority, and I think we do that as things happen. You know, as something comes up, we look at it. Mr. Walmsley gets the information, and we talk about it at budget time to try to see what can we do to put in a program, keep a program going. So I think we do that on a regular basis.
And similarly, that question was specifically about theater, but in general, how important are extracurricular activities in the Richmond community, Mrs. Fortuna?
Oh, I think that they're extremely important. I mean, like I said, I was involved with the theater program and the choir program, you know, in the RGFA here in the community. So, I mean, I think that they're extremely important. They give kids or students other outlets, things that they're interested in. They have friend groups. They learn how to work with people, you know, in groups, and to put something together like a show as far as theater or even a choir assembly or whatever together is a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. So I think that's very important. It gives them a sense of pride, you know, and it's great for their self-esteem. So I think it's very important.
Thank you. And again, Mrs. Teltow, the same question. How important are extracurricular activities to the Richmond community?
I think they're huge. If you speak extracurricular, if you're talking sports, sports are a big thing in this community. We have lots of students that are involved. We have great people who coach. If you go the academic route, we have so many students involved with extracurricular. We had a robotics team, and in order to expand that, we had a Lego club at our elementary, and through that, we created line items in our Schedule B, which is payment for extracurricular teachers or adults who do it, to have more choices, more chances for kids to participate. We have hundreds of kids that participate throughout the robotics program, the theater. It is a big thing, and we have worked hard as a board to make those Schedule Bs, make more of them, make it so we're trying to boost the pay a little bit to get more people involved. But I think extracurriculars sometimes can make a kid's whole school experience by being able to participate in something outside of the regular school day.
Thank you. And this is our last question, and then we'll move into closing comments, and you each will have about 2 minutes. You will have 2 minutes to deliver your closing comments. And so as in preparation for your closing comments, can you just share with us the unique skills and experience that you would bring to this role? Mrs. Fortuna.
Sure. I do, like I said before, I have experience in many ways that I've volunteered in the community. I was the president of the RGFA for a while. I was a coach for the RGFA in the community, in the district. I have volunteered my time to be a choir booster for over 3 years. I have volunteered my time to be a theater booster to help that program get up and running. I have sat in on board meetings when my daughter was sat on the board as a student representative for 3 years. I was probably at 95% of those meetings. I learned a lot about the board and what has to happen then. When I was appointed in January, so I've been sitting on the other side of the table since January, and have learned how it kind of works on that side now. But I still am new, quite a bit new, so I still have kind of a fresh perspective in regards to that. with still a little bit of experience, I guess. So that's, I think, that about sums it up.
Thank you. Mrs. Teltow, what unique skills and experience can you bring to this role?
Well, mine's not as fresh as Mrs. Fortuna since I've been doing it for so long, but I think doing it that long, I've gone through 18 budget cycles. I've gone through budget cycles that have been horrific. I am involved, I attend just about every single thing that happens in this school district, whether it's plays, athletic events, meet the teacher nights, all of that. I go because I think it's important for my face to be there and for staff and community to know that I'm all in for the district. I attend with Mr. Walmsley, the Macomb County School Board Association. We have monthly meetings. I attend those with him. You get to learn things about other districts, what's happening. You might get some ideas that you can bring back that we could do with Richmond. I'm involved in the Education Foundation, and I'm just all in, and I've been doing this for a long time. I have knowledge base that is different from some of my opponents, and I just think that that's what makes me a really good candidate to continue working for Richmond schools.
Thank you. And now you both will have an opportunity to provide closing remarks that you'd like to share. And again, we'll start with Mrs. Fortuna. You get to start us off again.
Yay. I just want to start off by saying a few things that I'm proud of in this district. First and foremost, as a board, we balanced the budget for the 2021 school year with expecting cuts of $700 or more per pupil. We made some tough decisions, but those decisions we made sure there was very minimal impact to students, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of our return to learning plan. Like I said, we had, I think, over 40 people work on that plan, all kinds of teachers, administrators, and everybody else. We currently have, I think, over 200 virtual students, virtual learners. So I think that we really did rise to the challenge in regards to the current situation that we're in. So those are the things I'm kind of proud of that we've done while I've sat on the board. I also just want to say, thank you to the moderator, thank you to Richmond TV and the district for putting this event on to get voters more informed. And you can learn more about me at my website is www.fortuna, F-O-R-T-U-N-A, the number 4, richmond.com, or my Facebook page is at Fortuna, the number 4, Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fortuna. And Mrs. Teltow, the opportunity for you to share closing remarks.
Thank you. I just want to say that I am extremely proud to have been a member of the Richmond Board of Education for all the years that I have. I have worked with some tremendous people. I've worked with people that we might not necessarily have agreed with each other all the time, but the bottom line is we did what is in the best interest of the district, and that's truly what the job is here. You have to put all personal things aside and do what's in the best interest of our students. I believe that I've done that. I believe in Richmond schools. We've worked very hard in the last 10 years to get us back up to the top of the county, and I believe we are getting there, and I believe we do an outstanding job educating our students, and I would like to have a chance to continue doing that, working side by side with my fellow board members and Mr. Walmsley to continue making Richmond schools the best. And unlike Mrs. Fortuna, I am not a real social media person, so I can't even begin to tell you what my Facebook page and all of that is, but I do have one, and it's something Margaret Teltow, something Facebook, but look me up, Margaret Teltow for Richmond School Board. I'm really not embarrassed, because anybody out there that knows me is shocked that I'm on Facebook, but I do have that information. You can also, if you see me around town, ask me any question that you want to ask me. I'm not afraid to answer any question that comes my way because I believe in the job that I've done, and truth always wins out in the end. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming and doing this for us tonight.
Well, again, thank you to our two candidates that we have participating this evening, Sandra Fortuna and Margaret Teltow. Definitely thank you for your time. But I also like to take this moment again just to thank, just all of the candidates, for your willingness to participate and serve the Richmond community. As I said in my opening comments, the board, school board members are primary advocates for children in the communities that they serve. And I know each time I have the pleasure of visiting the Richmond community, the hospitality, the graciousness just always shows. And again, these are extremely challenging times right now. And so just hats off to the entire community for a good opening to the school year, and just wish you much continued success as you continue to serve the students of Richmond community. So thank you. It was a complete honor and pleasure to be with you this evening.